Hello and welcome to the OKPreps Extra Show. I'm Patrick Prince, joined as always by Barry Lewis. Barry, always good to be with you. Before we get into our high school topics, wanted to ask you about the Thunder. You were in Oklahoma City last night to watch the Thunder clinch, and I thought of you while watching the game. The atmosphere was just crazy as it always is. You can even tell that on TV. You're probably the most insane's not the word, but what's the word? The biggest like just general sports fan I think I've ever met. You go to everything, and over the years you've made a real concerted effort to get to as many Thunder games as you can. Like in the midst of all the other things you're juggling, like I'll be talking to you on a Tuesday, and you're like, "Well, I'm going to go to the Thunder tonight." I'm like, "When do you have time to do that?" So I'm curious, just in terms of a fan of sports, what's it meant to you to have the Thunder in Oklahoma City?
Oh, it's meant so much. I mean, when I was growing up and watching the NBA in the 70s and 80s, which I think is a really, especially the 70s, I think, which is an underrated time in NBA history. I loved it before loving the NBA was really cool, before the Magic and Bird era. But I would never have imagined growing up here in Oklahoma that I would have an NBA team to go watch just 90 minutes away. I mean, it just blows my mind thinking back at it. I mean, who would have ever imagined that you would have a big time pro franchise like that just 90 minutes away? So it's meant so much, and it's been an incredible 20 years, first 20 years of the NBA being in Oklahoma City and in Oklahoma.
All right, let's talk some high schools. We mentioned this last week, Barry, but I kind of feel like we glossed over it a little bit. Former Owasso running back Jayson Moll is now at Bixby, and he rushed what for more than 1,000 yards last year, 15 touchdowns, if I'm remembering that right. That's a big time move. I mean, he could easily be maybe the most impactful transfer in our area this season. Is that fair, or am I overstating it?
That's fair. It could be, definitely is. I mean, because one thing where I don't really say Bixby had any weaknesses last year. They did win another state title, but over the last couple years, you could say if there's one thing maybe they were lacking in a little bit was that big time breakaway running back like Jayson Moll is, and so that really gives them another dimension to the offense. I mean, it's not like they were hurting for scoring points, although last year they didn't quite score quite as many for the most part as the previous years. They were only averaging 55 or so instead of 60 plus. Although they did, to be fair, they did set their all single game scoring record last year with 85 points. Um, so but their running attack would be basically having Cooper Parker, who like as a backup quarterback, just take off and run, take a direct snap and take off and run. And so they really didn't have that dynamic breakaway tailback threat that Jayson Moll gives them. So it's been a few years since they've had that again. So it just makes a really good offense have a chance to be really great.
Let's stick with the Spartans just for a second. I was rereading your story in preparation for this video. Trey McLaughlin, linebacker. Correct me if I'm wrong, Barry. He had zero offers this time last year. Now he has
Yes,
13, and he's committed to Oklahoma State. How did he go from zero offers to 13 in a year?
just that. I mean, um, we were talking about the 85 points, that single game scoring record. He was part of that with a pick six. He had a couple of pick sixes last year, and well, actually, they were in consecutive games, but he is just. He had played some as a sophomore, but last year was his first full time as a starter. And you take one look at him, and he just stands out. I mean, he's a dynamic playmaker. You can see that on defense. He's just there's just something about him. I mean, he's got good size, good speed, and he's just got it all. And he got his first chance to really because Bixby had virtually a brand new defense last year, which and it turned out to be a really good defense, which just shows you how loaded they were on defense the previous years. That he got this really good defense. And none of them were starters the previous years. They didn't really miss a beat. And Trey McLaughlin was one of those players. And it is really interesting. And by the way, before we go on, Trey is going to get the chance to show more of his playmaking ability by being used as a receiver also some this year. So that's going to be fun to see. But it is really intriguing or interesting, fascinating even, to see how sometimes some players are really zeroed in on by the college recruiters as early as their freshman seasons, and they get major college offers like Rejoice's, Camion Comptonero, who we talked about last week, already had 4 before the end of his freshman year, school year was over. And they keep on getting more and more and more. We saw that, of course, with Shaker Rysick in his career. And then you've got guys like Trey, who all of a sudden, like, and understandably, that why they wouldn't have any if they haven't started previously. Then they just take off. I mean, sometimes all it takes is one offer, and then that one offer is seen by other people and say, hey, we need to check him out. And then we saw that with Josh Jacobs 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We kept on wondering, why isn't he being offered by anybody? And then all of a sudden, when Alabama shows interest, oh, the floodgates, open up. So it is really fascinating the way the recruiting game goes.
Well, and as your story also pointed out, Trey is going to room with Katie Jones, which is a nice segue to our next topic. We briefly mentioned this last week without getting into it, but turns out Katie Jones, the state's best running back, is going to play a little defense this year, and it was his idea. He volunteered to do it. What do you make of that?
Yeah, when Smosh Stanford made the move and made the announcement and told everyone he was going to move from Jenks to Broken Arrow, then Katie Jones just stepped up and volunteered right away to help fill that void. And that just shows you what kind of leader, what kind of desire to win that Katie has. And you look at Bixby, speaking of Bixby, and I think you're looking at more. There used to be a time where the 6A1 powers, and I think they still do to an extent, they don't want guys to play both ways if they can avoid it. But I think more and more the coaches are seeing the wisdom to play players both ways if you want to get your best players on the field as much as possible. And uh, Katie Jones, obviously a dynamic athlete, and he's definitely, I mean, he played a little bit of defensive back before he got an interception 2 years ago in one of his brief appearances. So it'll be fascinating to see how he fares in the secondary at Jenks.
I mean, he's a shifty runner, no doubt about it, but he's a tough kid. And
Yes,
he runs inside and he takes hits and delivers hits. He maybe one of those guys who plays a little bigger than his size. Maybe is that fair? I
that's
think I
fair.
think he'll be as great on defense as he wants to be because I just yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great move. I mean, of course, there is also a challenge for coaches. You want to make sure you don't wear these guys out either. I mean, sometimes you want to pick your spots. Maybe there's going to be some games, especially when you come in as a big favorite, that you're not going to play Katie Jones as much on defense. If you know you're not going to really have to have him, you're going to save him and make sure he's fresh later in the season in the must-win games. So that's a whole different thing for coaches. And I talked with earlier today. We'll get back. We'll look ahead to this later about with Scott Rigby at Collinsville, who's a 1,500-yard rusher, but he also plays defense, and he's also a valuable linebacker for Collinsville. So, like, how do you make sure that he's still? You want him to be really effective on offense. You need that, but you need him on defense too. And um, how do you find that balance?
Yeah, yeah, good point. Good point. Well, the kind of spring football tour that you have been on, Barry, along with our colleague Bill Haston, is really produced some great content, really good stories. What else you got going on?
Yes, look in Sunday's paper for Bill visited Broken Arrow the other day, and a lot of changes at Broken Arrow, including the head coach, of course, Travis Hill, a whole new atmosphere out there. I think they were a program that was about to get things turned back around, even before the coaching change, but it'll be really interesting to see how quickly they can get into serious state title contention with Travis Hill at the helm and just a whole new atmosphere there. So read about that in Sunday's Tulsa World. And the last few days, I've been able to take a look at, I visited Sand Springs yesterday, see where you've got one of the state's top passing combinations, Easton Webb quarterback, Dom Forbes receiver. And so look out for Sand Springs this year. And we'll have that within the next couple days, my report on that. And then Parker Gerald and I went to Berry Hill today and got a good look at Collinsville and Berry Hill going at it. And both of those teams, as I alluded to Scott Rigby earlier, and both of those teams have some really good, fascinating players. Berry Hill's got a couple of power four offensive line commit are prospects, recruits, including OSU commit Aiden Martin. So in both teams, which are looking to replace their starting quarterbacks from last year. So that's there is that. So look for our reports on Berry Hill and Collinsville upcoming as well.
Yeah, we'll save this for next week, but I'd love to talk about Broken Arrow a little deeper and um, see what your thoughts on that. Because Travis Hill's a good coach, right? He's pretty good.
His resume just speaks for itself. He won a state
Yeah.
championship at East Central, won a state championship at Muskogee. He won a state championship as defensive coordinator at Broken Arrow. So he's got a long and successful track record. And it's just, he's one of those coaches like the atmosphere just changes when he enters the room.
Yeah, one of those guys.
Is
Yeah.
yes. I mean, what a personality and what a successful coach he's been throughout the years. And it's been great to work with for many, many years. And so looking forward to seeing what he can do at Broken Arrow.
All right, Barry, what else is on your mind? Shall we, you got more to talk about, or shall we leave it there?
Looking forward to the All World Awards on June 19th at One Oak Field. And we're looking forward to that. We'll have a story coming up soon on how you can get your tickets to that event, which has the additional attraction this year. You can not only attend the ceremony, but there's a drillers game afterwards. So it's going to be really fun. Looking forward to that. And of course, in the weeks leading up to that, we will be announcing all our all world spring sports teams.
You're staying busy as always, aren't you, Barry?
Yes, it's a whirlwind.
Okay, we started on the Thunder. Let's end on the Thunder. Are you going to try to get to some finals games?
Oh yes, absolutely.
How many
Uh,
you want to get to?
uh, well, the NBA finals don't come here very often, so I'm looking to go to them all as if I can.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there for this week. I'm Patrick Prince. He's Barry Lewis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.